Hey, welcome back to my Reader's Journal, or welcome if you're brand new. For this video, I'm going to be going over the second book of the Shadow and Bone trilogy called Siege and Storm, written by Leigh Bardugo. Now, I'm going to have to be honest with you. I did like this book a lot more than the first one, so I'm going to be praising it more than actually criticize it. Per usual, I will start off with a spoiler-free section, then followed by a spoiler section. If you do end up liking my review, it would mean a lot if you dropped a like or subscribe, just because it does help the video out. So to start, I want to read the back synopsis just because it's going to give me a clear reminder of what's on the back and what I am able to talk about without necessarily spoiling. So it's going to give me a clear roadmap of what I can talk about right off the bat. And I always say, if it's here, then it's fair game. It's not a spoiler. So it says, Soldier, Summoner, Saint. Alina Starkov's powers have grown, but not without a price. She is the Sun Summoner, hunted across the true sea, haunted by the lives she took on the Shadowfold. But she and Mal can't outrun her enemies for long. The Darkling is more determined than ever to claim Alina's magic and use it to take the Ravkan throne. With nowhere else to run, Alina enlists the help of an infamous privateer and sets out to lead the Grisha army. But as the truth of Alina's destiny unfolds, she slips deeper into the Darkling's deadly game of forbidden magic, and further away from her humanity. To save her country, Alina will have to choose between her power and the love she thought she would always have as her shelter. No victory can come without sacrifice, and only she can face the oncoming storm. Alright, so based on this, one thing that I can comment right off the bat is that yes, the Darkling is alive. The synopsis doesn't even try to hide it, so I guess I'm gonna start with him. So even though he wasn't in much of the book, I still pretty much like the part that he played in this book. He was a threat, and not only to the lives of the characters, but also to the relationships and the bonds and the dynamics of the characters. The synopsis talks about the desire that he has for Alina's power, and in this book, you can really feel the desperation that he has to get that power, to control it and wield it for his own gain. And I really like that the book really does deliver this sense. This book doesn't give me an inkling that he and Alina would be a good match romantically. Like, he is very obsessed with her because of her power, because of what she's able to do for him specifically and for his goals, and not because of who she is. And if you had watched my previous video for Shadow and Bone, then you would already know that I'm not a fan of the Darklina relationship that people want. I just don't see it, and this book also didn't really bring anything to the table for that. But yeah, the Darkling has grown in threat, in power, and you can really feel it, and you can also see it at the end of the book with what happens. If you know, you know. Now, next, I want to talk about the main character, Alina. One of my biggest criticisms from book one is that Alina didn't really have agency. The book was very plot driven, and Alina was really just forced to go with the flow, like things happened to her instead of her choosing to do different things. And for this book, we can actually see her change her fate. In this book, she does have agency. We see her make decisions and put her life into her own hands. And I think this is really important because it really gives me, as a reader, a good sense of understanding of where she's at mentally, what is her desire, what is it that she's fighting for, like what she ultimately wants, as opposed to simply being in places just because of plot reasons and her having to do stuff simply because of plot reasons. Like in this book, she is intentionally deciding to do things, to go to certain places, and it's all her choice. Hell, even the synopsis mentions that she wants to lead the Grisha army, and this is a good detail because, again, it's something that she is choosing to do this. This is something that she wants, and she has motives for this instead of it being put upon her for plot reasons. I also remember that during my review of book one, I mentioned that I was kind of worried that her sarcastic, funny, and also feisty side of her wasn't, or was there was a potential of it not appearing in books two and three. And it was simply because, honestly, I couldn't remember what her personality was like for books two and three. And after I read book one, I was kind of worried because I was like, wait, This characteristic really stuck out to me in book one, but I don't remember if it's here in book two and three. So that kind of worried me. But I'm glad to say that her personality does stay intact. She is still sarcastic, she's still funny, she's still feisty, but we do see her grow and mature, and I love that for her. Now, I want to talk about Mal. So, on the topic of Mal, I want to acknowledge that I now understand why people hate or, at the very least, dislike his character for the rest of the series. Now, to be frank and honest, I still like Mal, but I also have enough self respect to admit that, yeah, he kind of sucked in this book. And it wasn't like he became a bad person or anything, it was more so that his protective side of him was pretty much his only side that we saw, like his only characteristic, and that ended up having a strain on his relationship with Elena. And every single time that we saw him, that's like the characteristic that he was embodying, and we didn't really get much else. And as mentioned, Alina has agency now, so she's making decisions. She wants to do certain things, and Mal won't be on board with them because he's very protective. He wants to make sure that she isn't putting herself in danger. And like, granted, I want to remind everybody that they barely survived the end of book one. Like, I don't fault him for being protective and for wanting her to be safe and not putting herself in unnecessary danger or in situations that she doesn't necessarily have to be in. Like, people are still hunting and looking for the Sun Summoner. The Darkling wants to capture them and torture them both. And with her getting the invitation to go to, well, if you know, you know, it's very normal for him to feel skeptical because, again, he doesn't want her to be put in a place where someone is taking advantage of her power. And even though Alina decides to go to you know where, then he still follows because he still loves her and he wants to put her happiness, her goals above his desire. Like, but he wants to make her happy even if he doesn't agree with it and he doesn't feel good about it. He still goes and follows her and does what she pretty much asks him to do. And the last thing that I'm going to say about this topic is that we also got to remember that they are teenagers. Like, they are still developing their emotions. Like, they're literally in this crazy world just trying to survive. So I have a lot of grace for him. Like, there was nothing in his actions from this book that made me like hate him, but I can definitely see how a lot of people disliked him because, like I said, his only personality in this book was pretty much like protectiveness and like he felt like he was being constrained. Now, the next thing that I want to mention is pretty much the plot of the book. And the thing that I want to point out is on the cover, we can see this creature, and I forgot its exact name. I think it's Sea Whip. I was also debating between Sea Whip and Sea Snake, but I think Sea Snake is more Game of Thrones or like House of the Dragon. So I think it was Sea Whip. I'm gonna call it Sea Whip, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. So obviously, this creature is on the cover. So we know that the Sea Whip is going to play a part in this book, very much like the stag played a part in book one. And I'm not gonna spoil anything for this right now, but the only thing that I'm gonna say is that I was disappointed. Like, with the part that this creature played in the book and the way that the book handled this creature, I was disappointed. Now, to finish off this spoiler free section, I do want to talk about the new character that was introduced. If you know, you know. I really like this character. I'm going to talk about this character more in the spoiler section, but there is a abundance of new characters, but there's one in particular that I thought really carried this book and was such a delight to read and really get to know. So that's where I'm gonna leave it for right now until I get to the spoilers. Oh, wait, another thing. I really liked the last part of the book. Like, there's this action scene, that's all I'm gonna say. It's an action scene, and I thought that it was so well done. Like, Bardugo was really showcasing the depth and the weight of this sequence, and I think that it was one of the best moments from this whole series. Like, I've already read book three last year. I'm gonna reread it after I do this review, but as of right now, that sequence at the end to me is one of my favorites. So the rating that I want to give this book is 4 stars. I think it's an improvement from the last book. I gave it a 3.5. So I give it 4 stars. There were still a couple of things that I wish were done differently, but I'll talk about that in the spoilers. All right, so this is the spoiler warning. If you do not want to be spoiled, then now is the time to click off. All right, thank you. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about is the big Nikolai ego that's in this book. When I tell you that I love this character, it I'm not even exaggerating. Like, this dude has so much depth to him. It's like Bardugo gave all of the character development that she was potentially going to give to Mal and just gave that quote unquote screen time to Nikolai. And honestly, I can't even be mad at that, because if I were to call anything perfect in this book or even in this series, it would be Nikolai. I mean, he is a prince that has to fight to earn his image and the respect of others. He also literally gave up his life at sea, which he loved, in order to protect and save his country, because he knew that if he didn't do it, his country would go to shit. Like, his dad ain't doing shit. His brother would be a horrible ruler from everything that we've seen, the way that Nikolai talks about him. So he literally went from a lifestyle that he enjoyed, that he loved doing, to now trying to get control of the crown of the country so he can save it. And he's not doing this because he's jealous. He's not doing it because he wants power. It's literally because if he doesn't step up, no one else is going to step up, and the Darkling's going to win. And like, does he have a big ego? Yes. But that's not even the real him. Like, the real Nikolai is humble, and he longs for the approval of others because he knows that he's in a place where it is very easy for people to disregard him. And like, I know that the book was hinting at him potentially being in a relationship with Alina, and I'm gonna be honest, even though I do like Mal and Alina together, I was also kind of rooting for Nikolai to get with Alina, because it's it's not even like, I think that they would be a good couple, which, I mean, depending on how it's written in the future, they could potentially. Pretty sure there's fanfics about it, but I think it's just because I liked him so much as a character. I just wanted him to win. And if that meant getting with the protagonist of the book series, then, and like, ultimately the dude is so funny. He's so unserious and goofy at times that it just makes reading the book very delightful and like a good experience. Like, I cannot express how much he carried this book. Like, this book probably would have stayed like a 3.5, probably even go down to a 3, depending on what they would have done if he wasn't there. But like, because he was there, he really rose and carried the book to its 4 star that I gave. And like, I'm serious, I don't think that this book would have hit the way that it hit if he wasn't in the book. Now, before I forget, I do want to talk about the Sea Whip again, because I had problems with it. So, one of the reasons why this book isn't a 5 star book for me, even though I thoroughly enjoyed it for the most part, is pretty much the beginning part of the book. And the Sea Whip is part of that. Like, this creature is literally found and killed in the 22% mark of the book. Like, if you were going to ask me when they found this creature in this book, I would have been like, oh, probably like halfway, probably like three-fourths of the way. No, they literally found this 22% of the way and killed it. And so the rest of the book, this creature isn't even part of it. And like, to me, that's just too fast. And like, when I was looking at reviews for this book the first time that I read it, I saw a lot of people really disliking the pacing of the book. But when they were talking about the pacing, they were talking about the middle part, which I thought is crazy, because to me, I'm pretty okay with the middle part. And it's more so the beginning, that like the pacing of that I think was just too fast. That if they had combined the events of book not book if they combined the events of the first part of the book with like the middle part of the book, then I think it could have worked out for a better pacing, because I think that the first part of the book was too fast. Like I said, they So I'll even put one of my other points in here. The Darkling finds and captures Alina and Mal like 11% of the way in of the book. And I thought that's crazy. Let me talk about that more later. But that happens, and then they find the sea whip and they kill it. And again, that is 22% of the way in. And if they had combined that part with the middle part of them traveling with Nikolai, then I feel like that could have been a good marriage of concepts where they are still traveling. Maybe now they're trying to find the sea whip before they get to Ravka, and on their travels they're going to these different places and they're getting the support that they need, right? Nikolai's getting the support of the people that he needs to get support from. But then people are seeing that the Sun Summoner is there. Like for Alina, if she really is in the mindset of like, I need to lead this army, and if she goes to the little palace and she sees that it's only like a little bit of Grisha there, then it would make sense that she would go on this journey to find more Grisha to bring in and train and get them ready. And if she comes back to the little palace with a good army of Grisha that are willing to stick by her, then that just goes to show that she is in business. Like she means business. She is ready to go and she is capable of leading this army that she wants to lead. All right, so now I'm jumping back to the part where in the very beginning of the book, Mal and Alina are recaptured by the Darkling again. And I think that this is so quick and I didn't like it because it undercuts, to me at least, the end of book one. In the end of book one, they barely survive and they are now like grieving the events that happened, right? There's a whole city that fell and got destroyed because of the fold, because of the decisions that they made leading up to those events. And then, like within the first 10 to 11% of the book, Alina and Mal get captured by the Darkling again, and once again they are with him. I feel like that just undercuts the whole thing because it's like, well, then why did they get away? Like, they could have still just been captured. The only saving grace is that Alina does narrate her guilt about the city that was destroyed. Can't remember what it's called, but it starts with an N. But I don't know. I just feel like the beginning of this book made it feel like the end of book one didn't really have a lasting consequence, which I didn't like. But overall, again, the rest of the book, I was pretty fine with it. So when I was talking about the pacing, I mentioned how there's people that dislike the beginning part of the book, and part of it is because it's Nikolai and Alina and Mal traveling to Ravka, and they're doing, what their political image and everything, and a lot of people dislike that. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't dislike it. And like if you've been following me and you've been viewing most of my videos, then you would know that like traveling sequences really put me off. Like the pacing, I just don't like. And the reason why this one I did like and I didn't mind it at all was because in this traveling, they're not just traveling. Like I said, they are putting their image forward. They're putting like these political things, like things are lining up, right? Like we are setting things up. We're getting a lot of character moments. We're getting to know Nikolai, and like we see the civilians and their admiration for Nikolai and for Alina, and we see the cult that is really developing for the Sun Summoner, which then plays later on in the book. And again, like things are being set up, so I don't mind them traveling and that happening because things are getting set up and we're having these nice character moments. Whereas in other books, they're just going from point A to point B and nothing is really happening there. But like with this book, when you actually pay attention and you actually dissect it, like there's a lot that's happening. We get a lot of tension from Mal and Alina, and that again plays later in the book. And we also have the iconic scene of Alina punching Nikolai because he kissed her in front of the civilians, and she was like, "Bro, that wasn't cool." All right, so the next topic is that I want to talk about the ending of the book. Like I said, the ending of this book, I think, is the best sequence that I've read from books one and two for sure, and possibly book three as well. Like this whole time, Alina is getting ready to confront the Darkling. She is building up her army, they're training, they're creating these gadgets, and things like on her side are like getting set. And then the Darkling strikes, and like the dude isn't dumb. Like he is going to strike at the right moment, and he strikes at the right moment. And what I love about this is that since we are following Alina's point of view, we don't even see the beginning attack from the little palace's point of view. We only see it from Alina's point of view, but she was in a very isolated place with like a small group of people. I say small, but it was like still a party. And by the time that Alina gets to the little palace, like it's already being attacked and like things are destroyed. People have already died, and like it's overrun, and like they're barely holding on. And Bardugo doesn't shy away from showcasing to us that they aren't safe. They are vulnerable and anybody can die. We have people dying. We see their bodies, we see blood splattered, and we see the group of Grisha just getting smaller. And by like the very end, like it's just like a handful of Grisha that survive. And like that is a huge statement. So yeah, to me, I just love that because again, you have this preparation of this big confrontation, and ultimately it just becomes a surprise attack. And Alina and Nikolai's side is like just overrun. They like didn't have it together when the time came, and there was a consequence for that, which I hope and I don't think I can't. I don't think that book three undoes this consequence, but if it does, I'm actually gonna be mad. If book three starts and it makes the events at the end of this book irrelevant, like how this book made the events of book one, like the ending, irrelevant, I'm actually gonna be mad. And like, I don't think that they do. I don't think that they do, from what I remember of book three. But all right, all right. So last thing that I want to talk about is Alina's desire to lead the Grisha army. Now, when I was reading this part, I kid you not, I literally texted my friend that Alina was out of her mind. She is not qualified for this. This is like when people put in like just random stuff in their resume and like submit it for like a job that they're not qualified for, and then they get the call and it's like, hey, we want to interview, or like, hey, you got the job. Like Alina has been able to use her powers for like 6 months. Like I checked the beginning of book one to know like what season they were in up until the end of book one to see what season they were at that point, and then the beginning of this to the end of this book to see like it is a 6 month like span. And like suddenly she wants to lead this army, and especially Grisha that have been training a lot longer than she has. And then I'm gonna be honest, I don't even think that her power set is really powerful. I said it. Crucify me in the comments if you want to. And here, I'll say this. Maybe it's not that her power set isn't powerful. Like, maybe it is. And it's just the way that the author has been portraying her powers that just don't scream to me like, oh my god, powerful. Ah. So maybe it's that. But yeah, logically, it doesn't make sense to me. But it also does make sense because she's obviously the main character. She's a sun summoner opposing this shadow. I forgot his name. Not his name. I know that his name is Darkling, but like his like because she's like sun summoner. Isn't he like shadow summoner? I don't remember, but they're like obviously opposites. So like thematically, it makes sense, but logistically, I don't see it. But I am glad that even though she is the one that's leading this army, she does make a council with different Grisha that are able to put input and make decisions with her, and it's not just her by herself. So I am glad that she has this democratic thing. So that's pretty much it for my thoughts on this book. Like overall, I do actually really enjoy the book. The criticisms that I said at the end were like I the only criticisms that I have, and the rest of the book like I had a fun time. It's funny. It's really has a lot of life to it, and again, a lot of that is because of Nikolai's character. But yeah, I this one is my favorite out of the three. I remember that I did like book three, but this one But that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night or a good day or a good morning, whichever you fall under. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time.